Well, I'll tell a Maverick by Jinx by golly. I have got a Western story for you here. The X-Bar X-Boys in Thunder Canyon by James Cody Ferris. A 1926 rootin' tootin' story of rustlers, kidnappers, and the two brave Manley boys who have an adventure. This is a product of the Stratemeyer Syndicate, which, if you're not familiar with, you are probably familiar with the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, Tom Swift. There's some advertisings at the end of this for probably lesser known series. Ted Scott Flying Stories and Hal Keen Mystery Stories. This was founded in 1899. This syndicate. By Edward Stratemeyer, who came up with the idea of like, hey, we should actually target some stories for children, and was extremely successful. He came up with what was basically an assembly line method of doing it, where you would just very efficiently write these things. Realized quickly that he needed to break it up. Edward Stratemeyer was breaking them up. And writing them under like just a single name, but he soon discovered that it's like, oh, each series should have its own author name. And then he would hire ghostwriters because the demand became so much, and he was cranking out so many volumes of books at its peak to be able to write these. Indeed, the fellow who wrote a lot of the Hardy Boys that we actually know of, a Leslie McFarlane, contributed to this series as well. I do not know if this is one of the ones that he contributed or not. That might be lost in the mists of time. Indeed, the Stratemeyer Syndicate tried to actually keep their existence secret, and that the fact that the authors were actually just kind of a pseudonym covering a whole cadre of various authors, a secret. It only came out more to the general public in the 70s when they got sued by a publisher. It became more kind of common knowledge. So yeah, let's actually kind of go on to the story. There's copy. I read this through Project Gutenberg. This isn't, they had the old kind of a dust jacket off version picture, but I found this online of getting to see the boys trying to outrun the avalanche that opens the story. Now, this one, the advertisement for this is Western Stories for Boys by James Cody Ferris. Each volume complete in itself. Thrilling tales of the Great West, told primarily for boys, but which will be read by all who love mystery, rapid action, and adventure in the great open spaces. The Manley boys, Roy and Teddy, are the sons of an old ranchman, the owner of many thousands of head of cattle. The lads know how to ride, how to shoot, and how to take care of themselves under any and all circumstances. The cowboys of the X-Bar X Ranch are real cowboys on the job when required, but full of fun and daring. A bunch any reader will be delighted to know. So this book indeed is the second in the series, but you do not need to know anything. This is one of the strictures that the rules that the syndicate put down is like every book should be in itself, just a story told within itself. It gives a little hint of, the next story to come, because they want you to buy. It has basically, it says, it just stops and says, and this there'll be an adventure with this volume next. But it also refers back to the earlier volume right at the beginning with a little bit of synopsis, where we had found out at the first volume, rustlers had been harrying the Manley ranch, and had stolen, their horses, their beloved horses, which is funny because like the ranchers, they first went for the horses. Second time in this book, they go for the girls. Yes, Teddy and Roy's sister is kidnapped along with a couple of girls that they are sweet upon, Nell and Ethel, from from a neighboring thing. And I have to say, like, this is like kind of a TV show, like it's an hourly TV show where you don't need to know what happened before or after, but it's also got the pacing of an old TV show. It's like, it is not rapid adventure. It's padded adventure, which you finally kind of get to. It takes a while for the girls to get kidnapped in this book. There's also a distinct lack of real threat or danger. There's never any kind of question that the girls anything untoward is going to happen to the girls. They have a chaperone supplied by the dastardly kidnappers, so they're not spending unchaperoned time in the company of strangers, which it's very there's kind of a quaintly kind of chaste nature to this story. Now, at the same time as all that kind of quaintness, there is stuff where there is a Chinese American cook on the ranch who speaks in broken English. And we do have the two heroes, Roy and Teddy, use a racist slur about this character. It's interesting to note that there's been a lot of uproar lately about books getting cleaned up for present audiences, and this was happening back as early as for this series. Not this series, but in general in the 1950s, where especially with the Hardy Boys books, there was a lot of complaints from parents that there was racist language in it, which actually the syndicate, now run at that point by the daughters, resisted actually taking out the slurs. They didn't think it was necessary, and ended up, I think it was Grosset and Dunlap prevailed, and they did actually take out the racist slurs in the books. They edited them. They also edited out they tried to keep the books up to date, contemporary, using words like roadster or stuff like that. They changed it to kind of seem like these were modern tales that were told, even if they're written in the 20s. They updated it for the 50s and stuff like that. Now, as you can tell by their names, Manley, Roy and Teddy Manley, this really is a book about masculinity, about kind of the Western ideal of a taciturn, strong male character. Yes, Mr. Manley felt proud of the fact that his sons were true men of the West, courageous and upright. And they're reliant, and they're put in charge of the ranch when the dad isn't there. This is very much kind of like, boys, this is what you should become. On the other side, we have them rescuing the girls who say, spoiler alert, when they actually do get rescued, that that Nell and Ethel paid tribute to them, saying to them, insisting that Roy and Teddy were so much better than those old knights who rescued ladies from dungeons, and would they consent to sign their names in this little book, please? They have a little autograph books, which is like is very cute. And at the same time, you also have the mother, the female support thing here, where when the girls are kidnapped, and it's a worry and stuff like that. Mrs. Manley takes on that burden, takes the weight away of all that kind of nasty kind of feeling stuff. It's like her willing spirit had taken much of the burden from their souls, embracing it as her own. How could they know that it had passed from them to her with their mother's kiss? And indeed, Mr. Manley looks on this situation and is silently blesses his wife. In that hour, she may have lost her boys, but she had gained 2 men. It's so we very much have, it's an adventure story for boys, but it's an adventure story, aspirational story for boys becoming men, pushing off all that feeling stuff, becoming reliant, courageous men. And yeah. So we have that. There is definitely kind of the racism in the book. There's references to kind of gypsies and to half-breeds in the book. The villain in the piece is just it's a white rustler. There's a kind of a really sad kind of half-hearted attempt at a mystery in the book over his name. They're all puzzling out his name, and indeed by the end they finally do figure it out. But it's just one of these things that at the beginning you look at it and go, wow, someone was really busy to try and crank out this book as fast as they can. That is the mystery that came up with it. He has a mysterious name. I won't spoil the mystery of his name here. If you want to look down below, I will put the name of the mysterious mastermind criminal behind this, and how he concealed his identity. If you cannot crack I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to crack the code as easily as I am. But it's it is a reminder. This is books written for simple boys. simple boys. So yeah. It's not fast paced. It's oddly quaint. It's got undigested racism. Actually, my favorite bit of racism in the book is that at the end, one of the ranch hands looks at Mr. Manley and says, unironically, Mr. Manley sure is one white guy. It's like, oh wow. Wow. But for all that said, it's an interesting little snapshot of like 1926. This is the fantasy. This is how we envision that, like, boys will become men in our society. White boys will become men in this society. I'm doing a 1901 project at the moment, which is reading literature and also trash and various other things around the birth date of my grandfather, who was born in 1901. Just like, that's kind of an anchor point for me in history. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a little project where I just investigate and read. I'm reading weirdly kind of coinciding with the home is where the homes is where the heart is. I'm reading The Hound of the Baskerville, which was published in 1901, and the syndicate, the Stratemeyer Syndicate actually started publishing in like 1899. So I'm going to go back and try the Rover Boys, which I'm sure I will find in plentitude on Project Gutenberg, and try one of those books to kind of slide in there, because as much as I want to do The Hound of the Baskervilles, I want to do Kim by Rudyard Kipling, maybe a little bit of Freud for a bit of nonfiction. I also want to like experience the trash, and this is indeed the trash of children's literature at the time. So just getting that good mix in of just like what the stew was of 1901. Hound of the Baskervilles, a lot of phrenology in there, pseudoscience, racist pseudoscience in there. So all fun stuff. So yeah, this is how I like to pick apart things. This simple kind of Western adventure story for boys. It's got like lots of interesting little nuggets in there that are far apart from the kind of lackadaisical kind of adventure story that's also happening. All right, I'll leave it there. More videos later.